Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Ripe for Reissue. And you're not going to believe this one. I don't even believe this one. I mean, this is unbelievable, but here it is. Yes, Toscanini. All of him. Toscanini, the complete Toscanini on RCA, the complete RCA collection. What? Yeah, I mean, is it really true that you cannot get this? I can't believe it. I absolutely, it is true. It's true. This was the last incarnation of it. I have every incarnation of it, by the way. And you know, you'll see that it's very nicely taped here, because this last packaging was absolutely guaranteed to crack along its spine here in shipping, no matter what you did to it. But I mean, seriously, folks, we're only talking about the most important conductor that ever lived. Really. I mean, he was. It doesn't mean you have to like him or not like him. We're talking about historically. He was, for any number of reasons. First of all, he was a genius as an interpreter. Yes, for sure. But second of all, he lived from, the 1860s into the stereo era, into the 1950s. And he lived to make recordings into the LP era. So it's an unbelievable legacy, a voice from the past that was documented. Now, does this mean he did everything the way they did it in the past? No, he didn't. In fact, we know he didn't. In fact, we know he hated what they did in the past. He was responsible for raising the standard. He was the Tiger Woods of conductors. He was so powerful and so gifted that he basically raised the standard of what an orchestra and conductor could do. And as a result of that, the entire musical apparatus changed with him. And this is all true. These are all demonstrable facts. They really are. And so, it's not about whether we like him or don't like him. It's about his historical importance. That's number one. So we get that, right? So for that reason alone, his stuff should be available. But of course, record labels don't operate that way. They operate on making money. But how could you not make money on a guy who was the mouthpiece of one of the media giants of the 20th century, of NBC? I mean, everyone knows who Toscanini was. Everybody knows his recordings are supposed to be fabulous. Not all of them are. Of course, not all of them are. But, it's not like they need to do a lot to promote him or to introduce people. He's not like Oswald Kabasta or even Furtwängler, who's known to a coterie of classical music junkies, but not to the rest of the world. Toscanini is known to the rest of the world. So, I mean, maybe there's an issue because some of this stuff is becoming public domain. It's very old, some of the older things, and some would say the better things than his last, things. But you can never tell with him. He was great at any point in his career. And this thing has like 88 CDs in it, I think. This last version of it, including like his Philadelphia things and his BBC stuff that was licensed, and his La Scala stuff, and it's all in here. And why is it not available now? That is the question. Could it be that another Toscanini edition is in the works? Maybe one in a big box, like the Zell or Bruno Walter or Ormandy editions that they have been doing? Or, some sort of cube-like object might be wafting our way at some point? I wouldn't mind. They really ought to do it. They really should. Of course, then there would be the question of what they charge for it and how it would be packaged and how many discs it would contain and all of that stuff. And we would have an opportunity to complain and bitch and moan and go crazy all over again, which we will do, I guarantee. I mean, I will be the first bitcher and moaner when we get out there and it's time to do it. But in the meantime, what this represents, and I've said this before, is the devaluation of the classical music business. I mean, I did a talk on this, how the industry made classical music worthless, because this is like a mid-price budgie issue, all in a nice little box with no notes and no nothing, a little booklet. Previous edition was like this giant piece of furniture with individual jewel box CDs, each of which had notes by Mort Frank and other Toscanini scholars. Really seriously done. Very seriously done. But what this shows is that it's not worth so much. And even that previous edition, when those were released, they were released at mid-price. The reissued Toscanini remastered, remastered, whatever, for the 50 billionth time. And the Toscanini family was furious. They were furious that his recordings were being promoted at a discount, because their feeling was he was Toscanini with a capital T. How dare you discount his name? And I understand that. I mean, I understand why, for commercial reasons, they did it. I understand from my own selfish point of view. I'm glad they did it. It made my life much less expensive. But I get the point, because, they thought with that name came a certain amount of quality. Now, we're all friends here, right? That's nonsense. That's nonsense. It's only one person's idea of quality is another person's, idea of incompetence. So you can't put a price on the name exactly. But they were right in the sense that it used to mean something to be an RCA Red Seal artist, but those were the days of monopolies and the few major labels who had all of the major artists, and they could name their price, basically. Now we're past all of that, right? All of this stuff is going to get streamed and stolen and issued. And I don't know if there is any value left in this from a economic point of view. I hope so. I hope to see this make a happy return. But from a musical and historical and cultural and every other aspect, this is priceless. Absolutely priceless. And it should always be available. My goodness. How could you let that go out of print, or print only a limited edition, or not give everyone the opportunity to share in what is, after all, our collective cultural heritage? One of the reasons we're all so fragmented in all this stuff is because nothing seems permanent anymore. We don't all get to share in the same legacy. I mean, I also remember, I'm getting now just going to blab and wander for a minute, but back in the day when they had record stores, actual record stores, you could go to the record store on like new release day, which was the first Friday of every month. And you could hang out at Tower Records or HMV or one of those stores, and all the usual people would show up. But there was a community of real physical people who talked to each other. But beyond that, there was a community of shared knowledge of recordings. Because, first of all, there weren't 750 recordings of Beethoven's Fifth. There were, a couple of dozen. And in the rarer repertoire, there was just one or two. There were 2 or 3 complete ring cycles. And we all knew them, which meant we could all discuss that. We could all share. And it's that feeling of sharing that I think I miss most of all in today's record culture. It's going to date me and make me an old fart. I understand. But it was something special at that time. And being able to talk to Mortimer Frank, who I knew by sight and pretty well. I mean, we could chat whenever we saw each other. We knew who we were. And his associates and the people, Harris Goldsmith, the people who saw Toscanini, who knew him, who knew his family. Wow. It was such a privilege for me to know these people and to be able to share in this fund of knowledge based on the experience of listening to these recordings, good, bad, or indifferent. And we need to somehow foster that. I hope this channel does a little bit to do that. That sense of community, that sense of a shared cultural heritage. And God damn it, Toscanini is a shared cultural heritage. We all should have that opportunity. So yes, even more than usual, this is ripe for reissue. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I have no idea. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.